Hello, everybody, and welcome into a special Thanksgiving Day episode of the Lions Grid. Of course, the Lions in action today, as they have been on many a Thanksgiving. And, of course, there's two other games being played today. So what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit here about the Lions and Chicago Bears game. Then we'll talk about the other games, and I'll show you who me and Joe are picking in those two games. But before we get started, I just want to thank everybody. It's Thanksgiving, so definitely grateful for everyone who tunes into these videos, whether you're just watching them, you're a subscriber, if you drop a like, all that good stuff, anything you've ever done to help support this particular YouTube channel. I just want to thank everybody. It means a lot, and couldn't be doing this without you guys. So thanks, and without further ado, let's dig in here for today's games. Starting off, as mentioned, with the Bears and the Lions. Of course, the big news there from the Lions side of things, David Blau will be making the start for them. Jeff Driscoll will be playing as the backup quarterback, but he will not start due to that hamstring injury he suffered. Quite frankly, I think the season's a wash anyways. I think Stafford should be shut down and put on IR, and I think they really just need to pack it in. Their chances of making the playoffs, I'm not sure if they've mathematically been eliminated yet at this point or not, but regardless, it's not going to happen. So I think they're better just shutting things down, maybe trying to develop some people, but, I don't think you're going to gain anything by putting Stafford out there, especially since he's been dealing with this back and hip injury for 2 seasons now. Just give him time to get healthy. The big thing is going to be what happens in the offseason, whether or not you give Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia another year at the helm or if you start a new regime. Either way, I think the Lions are certainly on the clock. Matt Stafford is the best QB they've had in franchise history, and they're sort of squandering his time with the team now. He's not going to be here for much longer. He's getting older. He's just, retirement is closer than it is to being farther away. So he's headed that way. Whether it's Patricia and Bob Quinn sticking around, or if you're bringing in a new regime, you don't have a whole lot of time left with him. And once he's gone, then you need to find the next QB, and that becomes a whole other issue. Whether it's this regime or a new regime, having to find that new QB is going to be a setback to this team. And so you might as well try and make the most of it while you have a franchise QB. And that's what I want to see. So regardless of what the Lions do, they're certainly on the clock, and they need to step it up. Not a surprise here, but we'll take a look at who me and Joe are picking in this game. We're both going with the Bears. Like I said, nothing too surprising there. Obviously, like I said, Lions down to David Blau, who is their third-string quarterback. I don't think it's, very surprising. I don't think the Lions should win this game. It would almost be the more Lions thing to somehow win this game and hurt their potential draft position. But, I think out of the two, the Bears should get the win. If the Bears lose, I think it's more alarming for the Bears franchise if they lose this game than the Lions. I think heading into this week, the Lions should realistically know they're probably going to lose. The Bears, on the other hand, obviously this has been a year of struggling for Mitchell Trubisky, the Bears quarterback. If they were somehow to lose here to the Lions, who are down to their third-string QB, because I don't think their defense will be the issue in that. It would be just their offense not putting up points. I think it would be bad for that franchise. So, Bears should get the win. I think this is probably the most clear-cut of the 3 games that are going to be played today. I'm thinking me and Joe like them. I think it's a pretty easy pick going with the Bears to get the win here. I guess the good news for this year, I know a lot of people get disappointed when the Lions lose on Thanksgiving, but at least coming into this game, you kind of have a pretty clear idea that the Lions are going to lose, so hopefully it won't ruin people's Thanksgivings. If you are going to the game, just try and enjoy the atmosphere. Mike Valeni has been talking on 97.1 The Ticket, not all this week, but for the first couple of days, talking about, how he wouldn't go to the game, and how fans who are going to the game are sort of lemmings and sort of sheep, and it's he makes good points, because I think really one of the only ways that you can make your voice heard, that really the owners take notice of, is with your dollar, because that's really what they're after, your money. And so if you're not giving them your money, that's really the best way to impact change upon them. Yes, if you go to the games and you do things like wear the brown paper bag masks, and I did see a post on Reddit where some fans were having those, saying sell the team. Previously it was fire Matt Millen. Those can be effective as well, but the most effective way to voice your displeasure with the ownership group is to not give them your money. So I get where he's coming from, but at the same time, I know that for a lot of fans, the Thanksgiving game in Detroit is a family tradition. You go down there, you have a good time. So, and really, that's whether you win or lose, because they haven't necessarily won a ton on Thanksgiving. So, Lions fans go in and have good times, but certainly, I think the Lions team. We didn't necessarily have huge high hopes for them heading into the season. I predicted them to go 8-8. Joe had them going 6-10, I want to say. And so they're in danger. Once they got that tie, they weren't going to hit my 8-8 record. But they're certainly, I think, in danger of really having a real stinker of a season. And yeah, injuries have played into that, but it's easy to feel down on the Lions at this point. And yeah, it is sort of what it is. We'll hope that things can get figured out here in the offseason. And like I said, I don't know if the answer is a regime change, because I don't want a regime change just for the sake of doing it. Like, I don't want to kick out Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia just because they've performed poorly, which they have 100%. The only reason I want you to get rid of them is if you have like a new plan and new people identified to bring in. Like, I don't want you to get rid of them and then be like, okay, now we need to get things figured out. Like, I want there to be a plan of who you're bringing in beforehand. Like, I don't want you to make the move and just be like, we'll figure it out later. No, that's equally as bad. Like, they either need to be working on a plan of who they're going to bring in, or give these guys another year, because I think that ugly middle ground is just getting rid of them and then trying to figure out on the fly who you're bringing in, because I don't think that's a recipe for success. Anyways, moving on to games that may be a little more interesting for your Thanksgiving Day. There is, of course, the Lions and the Bears will be playing at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. At 4:30 Eastern Time, you have the Buffalo Bills traveling to take on the Dallas Cowboys. And I'll be upfront, our picks this week are pretty lame, pretty white bread, because both me and Joe are going with the same teams in all three of these games. However, I do think that these two other games are much more interesting compared to the, like I said, the Chicago Bears-Lions game. That's a pretty clear-cut. Chicago should have the edge. These other two games are pretty interesting. And so starting with the Bills and the Cowboys, the Cowboys coming off that tough loss to the Patriots. Amari Cooper held without a catch for the first time since joining the Cowboys. Certainly hurt my fantasy performance last week, getting that big old goose egg there. They need a rebound. Like, the NFC East is a two-team race between them and the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, the NFC East is looking like the weakest division in the NFC, just based off of record. And yeah, the Cowboys are one of those teams where you think they're going to be good. They certainly have the talent, but they haven't necessarily turned that into wins on the field. And so they're going up against Buffalo, and Buffalo is a team that's right there on the cusp. They're certainly a team that has a very good chance of making it into the playoffs for the AFC as a wild card. Certainly being in the same division as the Patriots, who are having their another one-loss season. It's kind of hard to beat them out for the AFC East when that's the case. So most likely, if the Bills make the playoffs, it will be as a wild card team. And so they're not a slouch. And so this is going to be a very interesting game. Like I said, me and Joe going with the same teams here. We are going with the Cowboys. Obviously, after last week's loss, Jerry Jones had some particular words for his coaches to try and motivate them and let them know that performance would not be acceptable. And again, they got to be real motivated to get the win, because if this is, we're getting down to the wire here. We're in week 13. There aren't many weeks left. If they're going to make a claim for that NFC East title, they have to start, and they need to start right away. So both me and Joe going with the Cowboys. I don't necessarily think that's a done deal for the Cowboys. Like I said, the Buffalo Bills likely making it to the playoff this year as an AFC wildcard team, this isn't going to be an easy game for the Cowboys. It helps them out that it is going to be played in Dallas, so hopefully they can get things figured out and turned on, and that'll help because last week when they played in Foxborough during that wet, rainy, cold, certainly didn't do them any favors, so at least they get to come back here to Jerry World in the Dome, and hopefully they get things figured out, because if they don't and they lose a game to a Bills team that can certainly win this game, it makes that NFC East race that much more interesting. But me and Joe going with the Cowboys. The late night game is an NFC South matchup between the New Orleans Saints, who will be traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. That game kicks off at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. The Saints certainly the better team on the season, and I'll toss it up here. No surprise, me and Joe both going with the Saints to get the win here. But as a reminder, the Saints played the Falcons just a few weeks ago, and they lost at home to the Falcons. They'll be traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons this time, and since coming off the bye, Atlanta has been playing much better. Dan Quinn has that team performing at a much better rate. They did lose last week to Tampa Bay, but they had won their previous 2 games. So, Atlanta's season, it's definitely not going to be as productive as they would hope. They're definitely going to miss out on the playoffs, but certainly a chance here to possibly come out and surprise the Saints. And hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Lions Grid. Hello. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Just want to let you know, Jeff Raymond's team for the Fantasy Football League stinks. Thank you.
That is true. He did beat Jeff. He did beat Jeff. Jeff's not watching, though, at the moment. So we'll have to see if Jeff watches the playback and gets the news that his team is awful. Awful. But, yeah, unless the Falcons do something surprising again like they did just a couple weeks ago, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Saints get the win. But, like I said, the Falcons have looked like a different team since the bye week, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Saints by 14.
He's going Saints by 14. It's 14 on the road in Atlanta. It could happen. I mean, Saints are a very good team. But Falcons have turned things around, so we'll have to see. Though I definitely do think, though, that the 2 later games, again, the Buffalo-Dallas game and the Saints-Falcons game, those are probably going to be the 2 more interesting games on the day. So if you're an NFL fan, those are probably going to be the 2 games where you're going to get the most interest because, unfortunately, when you're down to your third-string quarterback and the Bears are a team that's been struggling offensively as well, this 12:30 game between the Bears and the Lions could be a bit of a snoozer in a game, I think, where the Bears have a clear edge. So, not starting off strong, but I think finishing strong with both the Bills and Cowboys, and then, of course, the Saints and the Falcons. I think those will be 2 good games to finish up your Thanksgiving Day. As my father did, I just want to, again, and I did at the beginning of the video, I just want to thank everybody who tunes into these videos. Your support means a ton to the channel. And just want to thank you and want to wish you and your families a very happy Thanksgiving. We'll be back again later this week with some more videos. Of course, we got to show you our picks for the rest of the week. But those 3 games locked in, like I said, kind of a boring week because we're both going with the same 3 teams. But, so that does happen from time to time. So that will do it for today's episode of the Lions Grid. Like I said, we will be back later in the week with more Lions Grid goodness. Until those next videos, I'm Kevin Marheine. This has been the Lions Grid. We'll catch you during the next video.